All right, thanks for coming, everyone. If you don't know me, my name is Amanda Zook, and I'm going to share with you a little bit about my journey of becoming a better leader here while I've been at Tepper. How many of you have heard of the term servant leadership? Okay, so a few of you. In a sense, I came with a backwards view of leadership coming here. This quote that's listed up here of whoever wants to become great among you must be your servant, and whoever wants to be first among you must be servant of all, is something that kind of shaped my worldview prior to coming to Tepper of what a leader looks like. Traditional leadership generally is someone who exercises power from the top down onto the people. But the person who is a servant leader looks at their people who are working with them and empowers them and allows them to be able to develop and become strengthened in their position. So during my time here at Tepper, this is something that I've worked on. The essentials of servant leadership really become discovering yourself, desiring to serve, and then a commitment to lead. While I've been here at Tepper, these are areas that I've focused on growing in. My role here for leadership has mainly been as president of the Business and Technology Club, and that's been where I've really been able to seek out and grow in my time here at Tepper. When I first started on the board, I thought, okay, wow, I have great people who are on my team, and I need to figure out how to leverage their strengths. So this quote that I have up here, I really took to heart because I felt like my job as president was making a difference through my board members, empowering them and allowing them to lead their certain areas, but making sure that they were supported in the areas that they needed in order to go forward from there. So before I share with you a little bit about how I learned at Tepper and what I learned through Accelerate, I want to share with you what I did before and why I came to business school. I was a server administrator. I worked in IT, and I mainly worked in the data center, supporting the programmers and the other technical people. So I was a support person to the technical people, so kind of way in the background, and I really enjoyed what I did. Growing up, I had always been put in leadership positions in high school and in college, and people saw that I could be a leader, but I enjoyed doing the technical hands-on things in the background and being that type of person. However, I knew that I didn't always want to be someone who, I just thought, I don't think I can see myself doing this all the time. So I started looking at different ideas of, okay, what am I going to do, after, what's my next role going to be? I started looking at grad schools, and I looked first at computer science programs and thought, I think an MBA is really where I need to go to gain those leadership skills. In IT, there aren't very many people who aspire to be managers. Most people are technical, they like their technical, they like to sit at their desk and sit and work on their computer. I felt like doing an MBA and moving into IT management was something that I loved IT, and I also had those skills where I felt I could gather a group of people around together and empower them to be able to do their jobs better. So coming to Tepper for me, a large part wasn't necessarily learning the technical skills, although I've learned many of those good skills here. It really was learning how do I lead a team and how do I become better at that. So one of the first things, as we talked about in servant leadership, is discovering yourself. When I came, I had a pretty good self-understanding of where I thought I was good at and where I needed to work. But I think both through the Accelerate Leadership Coaching and through the Immersion Workshop, I discovered new things about myself. I worked a lot with Laura and coming back to her and saying, okay, here's what's going on our board. How do you think I can improve? There were many times where we rejoiced over the successes and we came back and we made a plan when things didn't go as well as they should have. Being able to come back and share those stories with her and just find encouragement in that was something that I learned about myself was I need someone who's there to support me. And so going on to my next role and making sure I have a mentor or someone to kind of cheer me on and say, hey, you can do it, keep going, maybe you fell down and it didn't work this time, but get back up and try something new. So there were a lot of times in her office where we sat down and said, all right, what are we going to actually do? And making a tactical plan was important for me to go in with confidence and say, all right, here we go, we can do it. Oops, sorry. So that was the first thing through coaching where I really felt I developed myself and gained a better understanding of who I was and how I could be a better leader. The second aspect that I learned through Accelerate was through the Leadership Immersion Workshop. Now, I think at the time, I didn't really realize how valuable it was. I knew that I learned a lot coming out of it, but it wasn't until after actually going through the whole process of leading the BNC board that I realized, wow, there were a lot of key things that I walked away from that session, understanding and helping me become a better leader. So with the format, after every session that we did in the workshop, we did a feedback session where all of the people would come together and say, okay, this is where I saw you excelling, maybe you need to work on this area a little better. And that was a huge takeaway for me, I think, just to have a team that was very open and wanted to all grow together. There were a few strengths that I knew that people had mentioned. I'm very good at getting things done, being task-oriented. So there were things that I knew, but then there were also things that I was pulled out that I was very enthusiastic and could get a group motivated and excited about something. And for me, that was something that I knew, okay, yeah, that's who I am, but I didn't realize that was a unique strength that I could actually bring to a team. So seeing that value was important for me, for someone else to point it out and say, hey, you're actually good at this. You should make sure you use that when you go to a team. So we also were encouraged just to spot out and encourage people in that group of, hey, here's how you're doing well. And one of the things that also was pointed out to me was that I was a good leader and people wanted to follow me. And I think kind of growing up, I knew I'm the oldest sister, and I thought, okay, yeah, I can take charge, I can lead people. But I didn't know that MBA students would be willing to follow me. When you come in and you say, these are people who are leadership personalities, would they want to follow me? And having this encouragement from this team was really critical for times when I felt like, oh my goodness, I can't do this. This is too big. I haven't led a team like this before. I don't think I can do it. Knowing that what they had said during that session was, no, actually, you can do it, was important encouragement for me to continue on. So then the tactical side after the workshop was really put into practice through our BNC board. I knew that feedback was important, and coming from this session, I think even emphasized it more. So after every week during our board meetings, we would go through the past week of events that had happened. We generally ended up having about 3 events a week that we would debrief and say what was good, what was bad. And this was a large part of, hey, feedback's important, and we need to know where are we doing well and what do we need to change, and then actually using those things, documenting them, and taking them forward to the next event so that we knew, what were the problems we encountered last time was important for our club. On a second note, we did a personal feedback session at the beginning of the mini when we first started at the end of the first mini last year when we started as a board. We were a new team, we hadn't worked together, and so it was important for us to learn each other's strengths and to help each other grow in that area. So we were able to say, hey, this is where I think you're doing well, and here are other areas where you could improve upon. And I think that was very helpful for our team just as a team bonding aspect and knowing we're all on the same team. We're here to make each other better and to help the club succeed. And then last, as I said, just the idea of encouragement that I can do it. I remember before our first board meeting, calling one of my friends and being like, I'm scared to death. I don't think I can go in there. I really don't think I can do this. Maybe it wasn't just the first time. Maybe it was like that whole mini. But going in and saying, okay, I can do it. I can do it. And having that encouragement from just the workshop, I think was very important for me to take with me. So then on to talking about serving others. When I came onto the board, my platform originally running for president was that I had the attention to detail and ability to be able to organize the board and kind of keep them going. And I thought that when I came, okay, I'm now elected president, great. If I was a VP, I could totally do this. I know how to run events, I know how to get things done, I can do it. But my calling was to something greater, and where I was very much stretched in a place where my job was not the tasks and my job was the people, and making sure that I was taking care of my team. I had great people on my team, and knowing that they could do their job as long as I kept them on track was an important role for me, just to know, hey, this is my job. This is what I'm supposed to do. The club will run effectively with their help as long as they keep doing what they're supposed to be doing. So sometimes it involved, making sure that I booked rooms for people when they were overwhelmed with work, checking in, reshuffling work to different people if need be, or making homemade cupcakes for people's birthdays. But just making sure that I was there to be a supporter of them. When Laura and I talked, at the end of the time, more so, we talked more about how to motivate people. And I think this was something that in the beginning we actually talked about too, but there were so many things that I was trying to just get my head around and actually keep afloat that it wasn't a huge area that I focused on. But learning that knowing what motivates people gets them excited and gets them going. So taking time to know who my team members were, and now I feel like at the end of the term I can say, okay, I know who would want to be on this type of project and who would get excited about other areas. Unfortunately, we're transitioning now to our new board, but I think that's something I've learned, especially now that I'll take with me into my next position of being a project manager, knowing you don't necessarily have formal power over someone. I couldn't fire people on my board. But how do I get them to respect me and to be able to do their work effectively through motivation that's specifically focused on them? The last example that I want to share of just a commitment to lead is having courage and sharing your strengths. So one of our really fun events that unfortunately Graham wasn't at, the one picture we have, was a bowling night. And we debriefed kind of what our favorite events were a couple weeks ago from a board perspective. And this was one of the events that came up as it was the most fun. We had a lot of people. We were able to allow our first year students to mingle with our second year students and just get them excited about the club. Well, when we first talked about this in the board, we were trying to figure out what should we do, what kind of, happy hour or something. And I said, hey, we could go bowling. And they all kind of looked at me and said, bowling? And so we said, all right, we'll take it to our all hands meeting and we'll see what people want to do. We'll give it as an option. And that was by far one of the things that people really wanted to do. And I thought, well, I'm sure glad that I said something. And that was something I think that was unique to me, of realizing this is who I am. I thought it would be fun. I thought, a way to bring my enthusiastic spirit and get people excited about, just getting together and having fun. This was an event that was really successful. So I think I learned that as I lead, I need to use who I am. Leaders have different personalities, and there will be certain things that I uniquely bring to a team that without my input, maybe no one would have come up with an idea like that. So going forward, I am going to Apple's IT Leadership Development Program, where I'll be a project manager, and I will continue to improve my leadership skills while I'm there. I want to make sure that I take what I've learned here at Tepper and continue to encourage and motivate people there at Apple. I know that I will take my enthusiastic spirit with me and will go forward with courage to serve the people that are there. So I hope that this gives you a little glimpse into some of the many things that I've learned while I've been here at Tepper in my leadership journey.
Thank you.
Any questions? Yeah.
So you mentioned briefly that leading MBAs was a unique challenge because they themselves are being trained to be leaders. Mm-hmm. Are there any experiences you have in your professional life or otherwise where the people were actually looking for someone to lead them because they didn't know what to do on their own?
I think there were certain situations when I was at Biola in IT there where they more were technical people. They didn't really want to deal with the big picture, and they wanted to deal with the smaller scale, just the problem that they could break down. And so there was one project that I kind of ended up moving into being the team lead on because I saw a little bigger strategic side picture of it and was able to move more into that. And I think just taking initiative in areas where I felt, well, no one's doing this. Someone needs to do this. Well, it looks like I'm going to do this.
Except a follow-up. So
yeah.
I'm just curious what you prefer. Do you prefer working with other people who are trained leaders? Or do you prefer working with a group of people who are looking for an individual to lead them?
That's a really good question. I think, so I had a great experience. Like, I really loved working with my board. And so that's been one of the biggest experiences that I've had of leading other leaders. And I love that. So if I could have that same experience, I would love to continue to do that. I think part of that is, and my focus of kind of career objective is in the end to be an IT director. So where I would be someone who would have managers under me, directing them who are taking care of their people underneath. And so I think that would be where I'd prefer. There are a lot of different unique challenges that you have when you're leading technical people of just not understanding the management framework too. Yeah. Yeah.
So you talked a lot about your experiences at Tepper, and they were wonderful and really great examples and so on. I'm also wondering how you feel you were able to take some of these things you were working on and then bring them into your summer internship, or how you hope to bring them to bear when you go for your job.
Yeah. So one of the development plans that we had, I realized as I was planning this, I'm like, there's no way I'm going to have enough time to talk about everything. But one of the plans was to be bold in presenting my ideas. And Apple is very much a culture where you jump in and you state your opinion. And in a sense, it made it a little easier because that was the culture where everyone was expecting you to have an opinion. But that wasn't necessarily my personality type. So learning how to make sure, like, okay, when I'm coming into this meeting, they're going to expect me to say something, and I should have a good idea. And even if I think it's silly or maybe not in the direction that they're going, there were certain times where I would bring up things and they would say, oh, we hadn't thought of that. And I thought, really? I thought everyone would have thought of that. But I think that affirmation of kind of the culture of saying, here's how you're supposed to do it, but also what we had talked a lot about and what my plan was focused around was important for me to know, okay, I'm going to have to go back to Laura when I go back in the fall, and I'm going to have to tell her that I did something and that I actually worked on this. It was important. Yeah.
I just said when you opened, you stated that before coming to Tepper, your idea of leadership was based around servant leadership. Now that you've gone through this program, has that changed at all, or your view of how you are a leader?
I think it's more reinforced it, actually. And part of that's because I think it's been successful. So maybe if things hadn't worked well, I would have kind of a different answer for you in that. But I think realizing that the greatest leaders do put power in their people. They're not micromanagers who are sitting at the top saying, you need to do this and this. There are some people maybe who do need more hand-holding, but I think knowing how to empower people is something that as a servant leader, you're taking care of, and knowing that the people who are working for you are okay and that they're able to do their job.
Great. All right. Thank you so
All
much.
right.